to Magicians Talking Magic. My name is Ryan Joyce.
And my name is Amazing. Thank you so much for tuning in to this super exciting and special episode of Magicians Talking Magic. This is our third book club. This is our third installment of book club, and later this episode we will be joined by members of the Discord to review, here it is right here, Plots, Ploys, and Other Cons by Brent Braun, who recently, you could say, won America's Got Talent. Did you know he was a consultant for the winner of AGT with Danny Garcia and everything like that? Amazing. And he's often one of the magic whisperers behind America's Got Talent Fool Us winners as well, too. So this is a great book read. We're going to dive all into that later in the episode. But first, Joyce, as we do, news and updates.
It's been a busy time, isn't it? The most wonderful time of the year. It's like Christmas, but it's not Christmas. I just love Halloween. There's so much going on, and some of it I get to tell, share with the listeners, and some of it we're going to keep hush-hush for now. But the one exciting development that has been unfolding over the last 4 or 5 months is that something we're calling, obviously, the Elora Magic Lounge. This has been out of the bag for 2 days now, so we, if you have gotten a little whisper of this in the background, we're going to unveil some of the information for you here. First of all, Allura is one of the small communities that I live in. It's a very tourist-driven community. Right now, the big focus is something called Monster Month, and it brings hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. Well, I don't know if it's that high, but to our community, millions, trillions even, to see these incredible monsters. Essentially, an artist 20 years ago who was working on film and television decided just for kicks to make these 4 very large paper mache monsters and put them outside of his house. That led to what is now a collection of over 80 that occupy all of the streets in the downtown core and the whole community, actually. In fact, there was, I don't think it's out anymore, but I'm hoping it comes back. There was even a very, very large shark that used to be dropped in the river that divides our community in half. It was a ghost shark, and it was, I don't know, maybe 20 feet long. It was massive. So it's really a sight to see and explore, although the businesses are just loving it. The community closes down the streets on the weekends, so like you can walk through all the streets, and it's just, for those like myself who enjoy Halloween, it is the place to be. And so we've been in chats with the local business individual who just happens to run and operate this beautiful theater. It's very tiny, currently 140 seats, but that's going to be reduced because
intimate.
It's stunning. And I can't recall what he said the specific lingo was, but it is of its type of theater. It's the oldest one in Canada, and it's been a cinema forever, and it's just lovely. Once we'll get some photos up at MAGICFESITVAL.CA, where you can find out more information about this. We'll get some photos up so you can see it. It's just charming, and we'd love you to come and see. If you are in the area, we'd love you to come stop by, come for the monsters, stay for the magic, as it were, and have some amazing food. It's going to be, we've got a special discount for everybody here listening. So tickets are very affordable, $25 if you enter the coupon code TADOOZLE, all lowercase, one word, TADOOZLE, right there. Look on YouTube, you can see the exact spelling. We'll give you 20% off. So go ahead and book those at magicfestival.ca. It's a 9:30 show, showing on the 23rd of October and the 30th of October, but this will be long-term. But for now, we're just talking about these 2 dates. So yeah, go ahead and use that coupon code until the 22nd. It's available to the 22nd. So we'd love to have you come out, 55-minute show, see the monsters, have some amazing dinner, see our amazing community, and let's hang out afterwards.
See the hosts of Magicians Talking Magic perform magic. I mean, how fun is that? We get to meet you and everything like this. We can't wait to see some of you there. And if you've been watching this on YouTube, which you should subscribe to, by the way, you've seen all the amazing, stunning B-roll of all the monsters, which, Joyce, you also have helped film and promote. But if people want to maybe say they're on their phones, what's the best way to check it out? Isn't there like a Monster Month Instagram account or something like this?
Yeah, there sure is. Yeah, it's Monster Month Allura, I think, is the exact handle, but monstermonth.ca is where you can go. It'll connect you with everything.
And
You
I
can
know all magic junkies are like most of us are Halloween junkies too. Everyone's gonna get a real treat checking this out. And the artist name is it Tim Merton?
Tim Merton, yes, and really, what he's done for the community is really incredible. And to see some of this work around town, hanging around big pumpkins and big ghouls and goblins, and it's really quite a sight to see. So we sure do hope you can come out see our performance over at the Elora Magic Lounge. I should say the actual name of the venue is the Elora Gorge Cinema. And the dining restaurants that I would recommend, or the one I would highly recommend, is called the Wild Tart. And that is only up until 5. So come early, enjoy. And it's going to be a spectacular weekend for you to see some magic and monsters.
And it's really talk about an opportune time to see the fall colors at the Elora Gorge. For our worldwide listeners, you should really take a look on your phones at Allura, Ontario, or something like this. It's absolutely incredible. And if you really want to see it, Joyce put the spotlight on Allura last year in our traditional Halloween special that we filmed. We hung up magician Scott Hamill above the gorge, and we had a drone out there, and we filmed everything like that. Plus, you can see all the cool monsters because we had Nick Wallace share magic with the artist Tim Merton, and Nick Wallace had a unique connection there too. Really special stuff. This whole thing is really exciting.
Should we tip some of that as well?
No, I think that's still a secret to us.
Great.
By the way, we recognize too, we have a ton of new listeners here. We can see when we get a whole bunch of new people tuning into the podcast, joining the Discord. But we just want to make sure for your bet by triple snaps to you, the listeners.
Triple snaps. Welcome to the podcast.
But to have the best MTM experience, you got to make sure you download the episodes on your favorite podcast app. That's how you get the episodes the soonest. If you want to watch the episodes, you can do so on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe because we sometimes have bonus content like questions with magicians. And join the Discord because that's where we keep talking magic, and we sometimes have impromptu jams, and that's where we're going to be having our book club later this afternoon. Joyce, we have a ton of events besides in-person things like Elora Magic Lounge. There's also virtual events coming up too. What's coming up this month for Cam Jam?
We've got a return of our most popular Cam Jam last year. Of course, the amazing Chip Romero and his just house of magic history. It's incredible what he's got tucked away on all those bookshelves and around bends and corners, or just right beside his refrigerator. It's really an amazing experience, and he is just filled with magic wisdom and knowledge and energy. I promise you're going to want to see that. Now, it's the very last Wednesday. I believe that's the 28th, if my memory serves me correct. So you want to check that out. Also, speaking of the 28th, I have to also make sure to acknowledge you need to check out taffelmusic.org, TAFELMUSIK.org, because on the 28th as well, there is a release of the Music and Magic program that I was thrilled to be a part of with Nick Wallace and the Orchestra Taffel Music. They are a Juno Award-winning orchestra, which is Canada's music awards. So very acclaimed orchestra that has put together over the last year this 1 hour incredible magic music concert that is virtual. Essentially, it's 1 hour long. You can tune in, you can it's very affordable, you can watch and enjoy it, and you've got a certain number of days or weeks to rewatch it again. So do check that out at taffelmusic.org. We'll leave the links in the description as well.
And if that is not enough virtual magic for you, I'm hosting a special not me myself, but the Ring 235 KW Magic Society is hosting a very special Joe Diamond lecture. Good friend of Magicians Talking Magic. This is $10. However, if you join the Discord, I'll probably drop some sort of promotion there later this week if you want to join in on that Joe Diamond lecture. But this is happening Thursday, October 21st at 8 p.m. And if you're interested in learning some Halloween magic, some magic, because we're all going to be. This is the exciting thing now that as vaccinations are rolling out and things are opening up, and like we're allowed to gather and maybe do a little Halloween party. So maybe you want some special tricks for that, or maybe you're doing some virtual performances still. I know Joe's material works across the board. So this is going to be a great session. Plus, how often do you get to hang out with a magician from Chicago who's been mentored by people like Eugene Berger and Marshall Brodeen? I mean, wow. So that's super cool. The link of that will be in the descriptions of all these things somewhere like this. And then
also a very popular episode of our podcast, one of the top 10. So do check out that
one
lecture.
of the top 10. I think that deserves another triple snaps.
Triple snaps.
And then the last thing that I really want to chat about before we dive into this book club, the third round of book club, is I recently got to appear on the local news again, and this one surprised me too, because I got the message on Friday at 2 a.m. asking like, hey, a guest, but I know. And when you have the phone on your bedside, you're like, why is there a thing? You look at it, you're like, oh. So then I debated, I was like, I don't think I have any new material. But this is a great opportunity. I got to do this, because at this moment in time, you can book up all your Christmas gigs. And this Elora Magic Lounge happened to form itself maybe on the Thursday before. So everything happened together. So I had to take the opportunity. And what do you do?
Great spot, man.
Thanks so much. But what do you do when you don't have any material and you need, something that you can perform almost right away? And when you don't message out on the Discord to ask Chris Shepard, the Magic Whisperer, the first thing I did was I searched Jay Sankey. I went to Jay Sankey's YouTube, and he has a great crossover video of Spidey. And then I said, of course, Spidey. So I started checking out Spidey's YouTube too. So the trick I performed on CH is a Spidey trick that he shares on YouTube. So if you want to know the links and all those details, everything is in our Discord. But you'll see me on the news performing that trick for the first time. It's a really fun trick to perform. It's a great trick. I can't wait to put 100 performances, 200, 300, 1,000 performances into that and see where it goes, because I like the way that flows. Spidey is a great engineer in magic, and that was such a good one. By the way, we've had Spidey on the podcast before, episode 92. You can go back into the logs of our podcast and check it out, but he is for sure someone we should have back on the podcast. Yeah.
His lecture at the North American Championship of Magic was incredible. I enjoyed it immensely. I know I said wonderful things about him last week as well. So you do have to check out Spidey's YouTube channel. Don't miss it.
For sure. It's one of those amazing free resources on YouTube. A lot of people knock learning magic on YouTube, but I think actually in Spidey's episode we talk about, say if you're going to do plumbing or do-it-yourself stuff in your home, you're going to find someone that is a real deal plumber with a YouTube channel. So why not go to the real mentalist that has a YouTube channel, or the real magician like Jay Sankey who has a YouTube channel? Anyhow, there you go.
Speaking of YouTube channel, make sure you search out Magicians Talking Magic and subscribe on YouTube.
But I think
it was a great set, man. And like the nerves of doing a piece of magic for the first time, and yet alone on television, my hat goes to you. People should go and check it out on your Facebook page to see that clip. It's great.
So the magic trick, it's fine. It's a rusty spoon. I was happy about the promo that I managed to squeeze in at the top and on the bottom. I watched it back. I didn't even let the host ask me a question. I just dove in, did my promo, did a trick, and then dove in at the end with more promo. So if you want to see how to do that, check out the CH
And truthfully,
clip.
that's what they want. I mean, assuming you're interesting.
Yes, I got messages afterwards from the producer and host saying, great spot, money, perfect, So
yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So it's perfect. But I think we should dive into it. If you don't know, we do these book clubs here at Magicians Talking Magic. We have done an episode on The Art of Astonishment, Volume 1 by Paul Harris. We have done Talking Magic by Juan Tamarez. And today we are joined by members of the Discord to chat plots, ploys, and other cons by Brent Braun. Welcome to Book Club 3. For Book Club 3, I am joined by, first from Toronto,
Colin Geddes,
and from Las Vegas,
Richard Wilson.
Colin and Richard, thank you so much. Triple snaps for joining in from the Discord into this special book club episode. We are talking all about plots, ploys, and other cons. As you can see, Mine is full of Post-it notes. I'm a Post-it note guy. How do you both do?
Hold on. Mine has a little card here.
Oh, look at that little.
Oh, I've got to turn off my backgrounds, but that makes it look even cooler.
It does make it look. Oh, there it is. That's the Grimazing Read business card right there. But I know some people do the highlights, or they actually write in their books. I don't like to write in my books or damage the book, so I've always done Post-it notes, and I write a note and I point to things directly on the pages. What about you two?
Post-it notes are, Post-it notes. I rarely write in books, but that's because my dad was a public librarian, so it was drilled into me early on that you don't damage books.
Sure.
But then when I do get books and there are writings in the margins, I love those.
I don't write in my books. I don't like post-it notes either. If I feel something is that important, I'll usually write it down somewhere else. And then I have just my note app in my phone. And then if I'm on a plane or sitting somewhere, I'm like, I remember this thing from this book that I read 6 months ago. Now I've got it with me. I don't have to go consult the book. If it's that important, I write it down for permanent remembrance.
See, that's
my excuse for being lazy.
That's a great little tip there. So we'll dive right into the book, Plots, Ploys, and Other Cons. I really enjoy it. This is, I guess we're going to review it at the end, but I'm going to start off right at the top. This is one of my favorite books that I've read in a long time, Plots, Ploys, and Other Cons. Besides the plots, the ploys, and the other cons, what stood out to you both from the book? And I'll kind of start off the conversation. For me, the book always wanted me wanting more. Like, I find I would finish one trick, and however it was written, or trick, it could be a plot, ploy, or con. That's the unique thing. Whenever I finished, I always wanted to read the next one because I thought the writing was so clever. It was kind of like when you see a Netflix show and you're like, okay, just one more before bed, one more before bed, one more before bed. I couldn't put it down, and I found like the entire book experience was a real treat. It's a really fun note to end on when you finish the entire book. I also think it's not your average magic book. You have to be a really big fan of magic, I think, and have a strong understanding of magic, because it's for the strong fan of magic, someone that kind of gets some tongue-in-cheek jokes. You have an understanding of some of these classic tricks that Brent even talks about. My favorite part, though, is that he makes all moments magic. Not just a magic show, not just behind the trick counter presenting a trick, but when you're out with your friends for dinner, when you're playing a board game. There's so many experiences in here. So, Colin, what about you? What did you think? What was your kind of
I think I like the variety of tricks in it, because I'm not a coin sleight guy. I'm not necessarily an impromptu magic type guy. I like doing card stuff, but there was something in this kind of for everyone. And I agree with you. I actually wanted more. Like every time I'm like it kept me going. And it's funny because I think when I finished reading it, I'm like, I wish there were like 2 more tricks in it, but it was just because I wanted more. Not that I felt that I was shortchanged. Like, it's actually pretty good value. But just because the writing's good, and it is uniform. There's callbacks to previous tricks, cold coin. And I can talk about that because I tried it, being one of them. But yeah, I just like the theory and the breakdown of the tricks too. Like, he would kind of for instance, you've got like the breakdown on 3 thoughts. Like, he's like, here you go, here's the different stages, here's what you can do. But yeah, it's not necessarily for the amateur, because there are he's got improvements or thoughts on other tricks that you're gonna have to go and check out. So there's not a lot of tight crediting in it, but there's those kind of breadcrumbs where you've got to find this to learn more about his thinking of it or his experience of it.
Well, I found usually at the end of each kind of page, he would have maybe the source of the original trick that all the ideas were based off of. But yeah, I think in the opening too, he mentions it's not a put your finger here, pick up this packet when and where. It's more of framework and ideas to kind of play with. Richard, what about you? What were kind of your high level thoughts about the whole book?
I love that you talked about it in relation to watching a show on Netflix, because magic really, I think, is and should be about story. The story that we are telling the audience, and perhaps more importantly, the story that they are telling other people following our performance in the days, weeks, and hopefully even years to come. Brent goes into this absolutely beautifully. I think the highlight of the book for me is he talks about how to sell a pen for like $5 or $10 or something like that. And when I read his technique, I kind of like, you clever bastard. Am I allowed to say that on the show?
Sure, yeah, for this, yeah.
Because it's about story. He takes a pen, does magic with it, and then sells you a story. The greatest living magician, and perhaps the greatest magician of all time, I think without a doubt, is David Copperfield. I had the opportunity to watch his show recently, and to anyone watching, if you have not seen Copperfield's show, if you are ever in Las Vegas, go to the MGM Grand, drop the money. It's not a cheap show. You're looking to pay $100, maybe even upwards of $200, depending on where you sit in the night and etc. Go see Copperfield's show. Drop everything else and go see Copperfield. It is that freaking good. Why is it that good? Because David Copperfield understands that magic is about telling a story first and foremost. Tricks are great. We are all trick junkies. We all love to be fooled. That's why we're a magician. But the story is what sells you as a magician. The story is what makes your magic worth remembering and worth sharing. And Brent Braun understands this. And that is, I think, the true premise of Plots. I can't talk, sorry. It's 1:00 in the morning for me. So that story is the premise of Plots, Ploys, and Cons.
Which is, it's so true. And maybe this perhaps is why he's such a great thinker, and he's behind all these people that fool Penn and Teller, win America's Got Talent, because he's able to capture the real magic behind a magic trick. I mean, we all know card tricks. A card trick is just a card trick unless it has the important story or the moment behind it. And I think some of the perfect example of this is, and he actually refers to this, and I'm going to dive into the kind of next, I think this is the perfect segue into our favorite theory nuggets from the book, little bits of theory. And the number one there's a couple here, but I want to dive into the first one, which is, he kind of talks about them, which is memory snapshots. That's what we're talking about here. He always wants to leave everyone with a memory snapshot. And he's describing this in this effect, a game called the Yellow Six, which is hilarious. It's a hilarious game of Uno. And I don't want to give away everything here because I think everyone needs to buy the book because it's a fun adventure to read the whole thing. But it's
also a very quick read. Read it in an afternoon.
Sure. Yeah, it's an enjoyable read too. It's so much fun. And this example of Yellow Six is one of those gifts that you can give someone else. You could tell a friend, or you can have a friend experience it, and they can share it with another group of friends. And it makes them look to be the most interesting person in the room all of a sudden. It's all about creating these cool social engineering moments almost, by making you fascinating, by having a little extra something special. Because we all know, I mean, especially if we're in magic, we all like the people that are into those puzzle things, or like, oh, you know how to escape from handcuffs? Oh, you can pick a lock kind of thing? Or you know this crazy mathematical thing? Or oh, you perform on streets? Or you help produce films at film festivals and things? You know, all these interesting things that might, it all ties into the same space. So my favorite theory nuggets is that memory snapshots. The other one is the chair principle, which ties into the memory snapshot. And that would be at an event. And we've talked about this on the podcast before, but standing on a chair, using it as an impromptu stage can really create a perfect memory snapshot. He dives into it and breaks it down. We've even mentioned it here, but the whole idea of, if you do that, it allows the host to see like, oh yeah, they're doing their job over there. It's fine. They're great. They're standing on the chair. But I think the biggest thing really for me was, this is a manual on how to be extraordinarily interesting if you're a magician, and beyond your magic show too. Colin, for you, what were some of your favorite theory nuggets?
I guess it's that. I mean, it's funny going back on it now because like I read it in the summer and I just kind of quickly like flipped through the pages before we did the call, and I'm like, oh, like I mean, the thing is like, since I've read the book, the other things that I've read and the other magic that I've kind of absorbed, I now want to go back and reread the book to kind of like, okay, now I can kind of see where either I'm using these things, like I've already kind of adapted them, or else I'll be able to kind of understand them or apply them further. Um, yeah, I mean, it's funny because I think about some of them which aren't necessarily tricks, like I guess the Final Destination, which that's something, and this is going to sound weird. That's something you perform in a public bathroom. And it's not a trick, but it's kind of, it's a gag. It's a bit more of a gag. And it's also a gag that you kind of, you do, and you walk away. Like you're not going to see the reaction from people. You're going to leave people with this weird story and weird experience. And that's what some of these are. They're not necessarily kind of magic. It's just kind of like these little nuggets of odd, which I really appreciated. But I mean, I did try one. I mean, are you going to talk about any of the specific tricks?
We'll dive into tricks in a second after the theory nuggets for sure. Absolutely. Richard, did you have any theory nugget from the whole thing?
Forgive me for sounding like a broken record. I might just say this 2 or 3 more times, and this will be my entire contribution. But story. I think far too often as magicians we get obsessed with here's a trick, and as the saying goes, the difference between a professional and an amateur magician is that a professional does the same tricks for different people, whereas an amateur does different tricks for the same people. And I don't know that is necessarily true, but I think so often we get caught up in learning new tricks. And I love that there weren't really new tricks in the book. It's just comments on things we already know. Here's how to take something you already know and turn it into a miracle. Again, it's through story, and I can't say that enough. The memory snapshots was another thing that stood out, but you already mentioned that, Graham. But I think those moments are very important. And now, having read that, I look for those moments in my performances. Where can I stand here and take just an extra moment? Slow down, look at this. You're going to find this amazing. Here, you, sir, come in close. No, you're going to find this amazing. You're going to want to remember this. Look, watch, pay attention. And then you go on. It's about selling that story. It's about making people remember what happened, or at least what you want them to remember what happened. You want them to remember what you want them to remember, if that makes any sense at all.
That does make sense. And it's kind of like very much a wrestling term. In the wrestling, they call it the sell. Like, how good is the sell, right? The facial selling, the match, what's the story of the match? And that's what this book is all about, is selling the magic tricks. And another special thing, even beyond this book about Brent Braun, he's always exploring classic magic tricks and making them better. Like, he recently came out with 4K color vision, the cube, and just turned that classic trick into an amazing effect, that kind of outdoes the electronic versions too. Unbelievable work. I want to dive into things that you might actually use from the book. And I know, Colin, you've tried something already, which is so ambitious, and that's exciting. But I wrote down kind of 3 things. One is the paper prediction principle. And this goes into the framework of things. He gives you the framework of doing a perfect stage routine where you can have an easy to do one-man, final prediction routine, a master prediction routine at the end of your whole show. And he basically outlines in just a couple pages, and you can have a full, 15 to 45 minutes, however long you tell your stories in each thing. But he gives you the book test, a drawing duplication, and then a master prediction. All 3, boom, there you go. A full thing just in a couple pages. But it's always up to you to add the enhancements, add the stories to it too. The other one that I think that I forgot about, and then when I was rereading the book last night just before we recorded this, that I'm totally going to use, but in a different way that Brent's used it in the book, but he kind of just off the cuff comments on it, like many things in the book, which I think is exciting. They're just kind of like throwing out their paragraphs. It reminds me a lot of Art of Astonishment. You know what I mean? Where he just kind of had ideas in there sometimes. And I think it's that shit is heavy. It's like the lead into Cold Coin, I think. And there's a lot of neat concepts there. And it's kind of also the stem from the Light and Heavy Dime from Paul Harris. And I really like that. Plus, revisiting his work on the 21 card trick, I reread it at first. I kind of fluffed. I was like, I don't really, who cares about this 21 card trick? His work on the 21 card trick is really clever. It's really fun. And I think that's also, if you want to trick to fool magicians or something like that, this 21 card trick work, that's where you go for that. Colin, what about you?
It's interesting that you mentioned the 21 card trick one, because that's also kind of something that I just kind of like glossed over. But then I'm like, oh wait, I'm going to pull this book out again with the deck of cards and actually go through this. Like I just wasn't kind of like, I had this at the cottage. I wasn't going to bust that out when I was having my my beer and looking at the lake while I was reading this. But the stuff that I would use, one, I think for me, and this, of course, you need to have the right assistant for it, is his key card for kids. Just going to show that picture there. So like I've got a 5-year-old and I realized like, oh, I can actually kind of train him to identify and give kind of signals. Like that's, I don't want to go into it too much, but if you have one of those 5-year-old to 10-year-old assistants or props, depends on how you look at it, that I think that totally like that validated the cost of the book. I'm like, nope, that's perfect. The other one was Cold Coin, which is a really funny trick because it also calls into something at the end of the book, like the structure of it. It's like a really good joke there, which leaves you hanging. He says like, use your favorite method for this. And it's a ridiculous, what? Who's got a favorite method for that? And then he reveals it at the end of the book. It's really fun. Hopefully that's not too much of a spoiler. But I did the Cold Coin trick, except it didn't quite go as planned. It was off by a couple of seconds. And if it wasn't off by a couple of seconds, it would have been terrific. But I'm still thinking about how to perform it again for someone else, because it's very specific and you need to have a lot of setup for it. But
it would be similar to the Omni deck. Once you see the punchline, you can't go back to it again.
Yeah.
But the confidence it takes to, and I wouldn't even say any more words, I'm just going to say the confidence it takes to put something like that together is amazing. And I'm so happy that you attempted it. Richard,
my wife was just kind of like, wait, what's going on? And then like when she realized what went wrong, she was like, oh, that would have been great.
At least she appreciated what would have been great.
Exactly. I'm lucky that way.
That's amazing. Richard, what about you? Do you have some things that you've used from the book or that you might use from the book?
Yes and no. I haven't used anything directly out of it as far. I really liked the theory aspect, but there weren't a lot of tricks that I felt were my thing to use. However, he talked about, as I mentioned earlier, selling a pen. And that is, I think, a way that you can quite literally sell any magic trick to an audience. I work as a street performer in Las Vegas. And so the hardest part of any show is that moment when you say, ladies and gentlemen, do you like the show? There's the hat, give me money, because, I ain't out here for free, except I am, unless you're nice, right? And I use an approach very inspired by what he teaches in the book to get people to say, you know what, if this works, if this is the miracle that I'm promising you, that would be a freaking miracle. Therefore give me money, because you've just seen a show and it's, again, forgive me, it's 1:30 in the morning effectively for me. So I'm here. But you've just seen a miracle. That's worth 10 or $20, right? There's that. But saying it in such a way that people really start to nod and go, you know what, that's fair. I'm willing to hand over that money, and I don't feel cheated. I don't feel like I've been conned, which is perhaps the greatest con in the book, for lack of a better term.
It is.
I also don't want to say too much, and it's tough to talk about that method without saying exactly what it is. But I think I've gotten my point across. If you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about.
I think you did get your point across. I think actually it's another kind of root core of the book is that all these things are cons, but they're endearing. You know, you don't feel like someone's been had or anything like this. Because sometimes in this carnival-esque work that Brent is engulfed in and is sharing with us with all these cons, it can feel grifty, right?
Yeah, there's no sucker tricks in this, really. There's actually no tricks where I've put you on the spot, or there's not so much tricks where, look what I did, I'm better than you.
Yes. It seems like it could be pushing in that realm of playing with that, making people uncomfortable, but it's doing it in everyone's having fun, because it goes back to the memory snapshot thing and making sure everyone's having a great time. Richard, you were going to say?
Yeah, I think the other thing with that, as a con, we often think as magicians, and really just culturally, when you think of a con man, it's, you're playing the 3-card monte, you're playing the shell game, you're trying to sell someone a bridge, right? But a con is short for something, right? A con man is a confidence man. To pull off a con is literally to just be confident. So the title Plots, Ploys, and Cons could really, if we're being technical, be retitled as Plan, Be Clever, Be Confident. And I think that's a key takeaway from the book as well, is it's not just about the tricks, but some of these tricks that you go into, Colin, you mentioned cold coin, that's a trick that you have to plan for. That's a trick that in order to pull it off, you have to be very, very clever to think of it, to make it entertaining. And to do it, you have to have balls the size of Alaska. Just make, especially if you're using his method, you need to have some serious manhood to be able to actually pull that off. And then while you are doing it, not just doing it, but to prepare it, you need to really be confident. And then to do it and to sell it, you need to be confident. And that's really a big part of being a magician as well. Because it's one thing to, I'll talk about a key card trick. I think that's common enough. Can we chat about key card method for a second?
Sure. We're all talking shop here.
It's so easy for us to look at it, and it's the first magic trick I learned, and I think it's the first magic trick a lot of people learn. And it's so easy for us to look at that and go, okay, well, it exists. We don't care about it. We're gonna come up with a much more devious method. I'm going to force the card. I'm going to use a duplicate. I'm going to use whatever it may be. But if you know when you're going to use it, if you're planning ahead, this is where it is. If you use it in the right place, if you're clever about it, and if you just sell it, this is what we're doing. It's a bloody brilliant trick. It is a fantastic trick that holds up against anything. I will die on the hill that the key card selected card can be one of the all-time great magic tricks when you pull it off. But the trouble is, so often we sit there and go, well, pick a card, now put it on top, and we'll cut the deck, and use back the card, ta-da. And that's not a con, because you're not confident. Talking just on that one, to pull off a con, to pull off a magic trick, to pull off a performance, you must be confident.
It's
Those
a,
are
I
my
think
thoughts. No,
I feel
no
like you
further
summed
ending
up
to that.
the I feel like you summed up the book really cleverly there, by the way, about the whole thing. I was thinking about it too. It'd be, imagine you had a handyman at your house and they were presenting their work as if they were a magician, like not a magician, sorry, like a terrible, like a magician that's not putting any story in it. So I'm pulling out a screw. I'm putting it into your wall right now, and I'm using a Phillips head screwdriver, and I'm twisting it once, twice, three times as it goes into the wall. Imagine that was happening in your home, like.
This is
Oof.
an ordinary flange.
I also like our tool knowledge. That's also fun too.
Any nail.
So I feel like we should wrap this up. I was going to talk top threes, but I think we've kind of talked about a lot of our top threes. Unless there's something that you'd... The only one that I didn't talk about that is in my top three is thoughts are private. And it goes back to framework again. He's giving you justification for a Q&A act, and it's the perfect justification for a Q&A act. Because a lot, the uncomfortable feeling of, well, it's in my mind. If you're a mind reader, why can't you just get it? Why do you have to write something down? He gives a great justification why someone has to write something down. And I don't want to give it away because then you got to get the book to get that whole thing. But closing review on the entire book. Is this something that you suggest the MTM listeners they should go out, purchase, put on their shelves? And is there anything that we might have left out and haven't talked about? Colin, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'd recommend it. I mean, it's for me. I kind of like look at the price. Like the one thing that I'm always wary of, since I've gotten into magic and my background with graphic design, and Graham, you'll probably attest to this, is so many magic books I see. I look at the page count, and then I realize, all right, are a quarter of those pages going to be essentially blank because they're their fonts are too big and their spacing's too like. So I'm always wary of that. But this is actually a good, dense little book. It's well laid out, and so the knowledge you're not paying for filler, is what I guess I'm getting at. Because I was kind of like, for us, it was like around $55 Canadian. And I'm like, okay, well, what else can I buy which is going to teach me? What else could I buy? A trick or something. But when I sit down and I made notes of like what actually I've used and what I've learned, totally worth the value. So yeah, I'd heartily recommend it.
Richard, what is your honest review?
I also I would definitely recommend it with a slight caveat. I also look at books with a, hey, how much am I going to use this? Is this something worth buying? Or more specifically, are the things that I learn in this book going to make their money back? And not everyone is a professional. And to the hobbyists, to the amateurs out there, wonderful. That's fantastic. No, I mean absolutely no disrespect when I say this, but my bottom line for me is I'm here to make money, right? Like I love magic, but also it's now a career. And so is this something that is going to make me more money? And if not, is it something that I'm willing to just drop money on because I find it interesting? And I will 110% say that this book has made me back the money that I put into it. I think it was like $40 American. It is 100% made me more than $40 as far as an investment goes. So it's a very worthwhile investment from a professional standpoint. It's also a very enjoyable read. That having been said, here's the caveat, as we've already mentioned. It's not a book of tricks. If you're looking at it to find the newest, cleverest idea for a brand new card trick, don't get this book, because that's not what it's supposed to be. It's very much a theory book. And I think theory books are fantastic. They are my go-to reading whenever I can for magic books anymore. If you want tricks, go buy Tarbell, go buy Mark Wilson, right? But if you want some good rich theory, which you should want that, if you want to take your magic to the next level as a professional, or I think especially as a hobbyist, because as a hobbyist, as an amateur, it means you're passionate about it, right? It's what you want to do, and it's what I want to do. And so I read this book actually several years ago when I was not a professional. And so it very much took my magic from, hey, I like doing tricks, to, oh, wait a second, I'm a magician. And this is what it means to be a magician, to be a performer. So yeah, absolutely, I would recommend, but not as your first magic book, because it's definitely on the theory heavy side.
Both dynamite reviews, and I share all those sentiments. And I think for me, I'm in between. I buy a magic book now I want to see if there's something in there for me that I can use professionally, for sure, that'll heighten my magical thinking, which this totally is. I also get magic books for entertainment value too, because I don't read books, to be honest. The only thing I read are either magic books or cookbooks. Those are the two things that I do, and they're both very instructional. They're instructional based, and sometimes in a cookbook you get a little story. You know what I mean? So I think this is one of my favorite magic books that I've read in a long time. I compare it a lot to Art of Astonishment, although Art of Astonishment I think would even have more tricks. But I also think Art of Astonishment is one of those books that you don't get as a beginner necessarily. You kind of have to get that after you've fallen down the rabbit hole of magic.
But also, almost certainly anyone listening to your podcast, Graham, is probably fallen down that rabbit hole a little bit.
This is true. This is totally true. And I know there's actually a lot of people that are maybe on that surface and they want to dive a little deeper. I think this is the perfect thing. And if you think about this is all theory based. And this is, $40 to $50 depending where you're located. But you could also get a collection of 100-ish tricks, one of those classic Fulves books for $7 off Amazon. And those are really just short paragraphs of this is a trick, this is a trick, this is a trick. Pair of Fulves book with this, and you've got a little magic career going on. How about that? That's some good stuff. Right
Absolutely.
There.
Absolutely.
But I totally give the book 5 meows out of 5. Colin, what do you give it?
Yeah, I would go 5. Go 5.
And Richard?
I was originally going to say 4, but the more that I'm thinking about it, I'm leaning towards 5. So yeah, somewhere in the 4 to 5 range for sure.
Awesome, I love
We'll
it.
say 5. We'll give it a solid 5. I don't have any good reason to take any.
And just before, okay, I like it. Just before we close out this episode, I want to kind of it's always great when I get to hang out with the Discord members and everything like this, but you two also both do incredible things outside of Magic and outside of the Discord and everything like this. Really quick, Colin, outside of Magic and MTM, are you willing to share kind of what you're involved with? What do you do?
Yeah, I also work as a consultant with Shudder, the AMC streaming channel for horror films. So potentially, if you've ever watched a film in Shudder, I might have had my fingers in it getting to you. So that's a good kind of seasonal Halloween spooky thing. And I'm also executive producer of a insane stop motion film called Mad God that is currently doing festival run, and it's by legendary visual effects wizard Phil Tippett, who brought to life such great stuff as the Tauntaun and the Snowwalkers in Empire Strikes Back, Jurassic Park, RoboCop, Starship Troopers, working with him, which is magic of another kind.
That's amazing. And Richard, you yourself, you also do some incredible things. You want to tell everybody?
Yeah, let's see. So I'm in Las Vegas. I'm an organist, so I play the largest organ in the state of Nevada every Sunday, which is a ton of fun. And then I also have this weird hobby called Larping, which is live action Dungeons and Dragons. We have foam swords, and we get into costumes and go run around in the woods. So I run a it's called a Boffer Larp out of Las Vegas, and we do that about once a month. And it goes from Friday night through Sunday morning, and it's a ton of fun. So look up your local LARP group, go join support, and play a rogue, because then you get to use all your magic skills for evil and steal crap. It's tons of fun.
Awesome. Richard, Colin, thank you so much for being on this amazing book club episode of Magicians Talking Magic.
Thank you, Graham. Thanks for the podcast. Always a pleasure, sir.
Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
And then we all have to meow. Meow.
Meow.
Awesome. We did it.